So we're in 8 cities, but for us to launch a city only takes 10 days. Within 10 days, we'll have a care team, partnerships ready to deliver care. We help immigrants living in the UK and the US provide care for their aging and elderly parents back home. And right now we've focused on the Indian corridor, so the Indian diaspora specifically, but broader vision is to help Filipinos, Nigerians, anyone that has this problem. So we closed our seed round, and it was $2.4 million US. It was led by a fund in the UK, Local Globe. They're like a tier 1 fund backed like why.
That's Anthony Jacobs, founder of Nila Care. His dream is huge.
We want to tackle that niche of cross-border elder care where the person paying for the services in one country and the delivery is in a different country. And we want to be that categorical company in that specific niche. We've had extremely really, really good customer feedback. So customers love us. They refer their friends. I'd say about 30 to 40% of our customers spend more money once they start. So they start on the cheapest plan. And then a couple months in, they upgrade themselves because they want to use it more.
So if you're sitting here again in 2 years' time, 200 episodes later, what would you love to say was the greatest achievement?
I think it would be saying that we've cared for 5,000 families and be in at least 3 or 4 different countries.
Anthony breaks down his pricing and operational strategy, plus closing a seed in 7 weeks for startups, Inside Out listeners. Can you tell us, what is Nila Care?
Yeah, for sure. So Nila, what we do is we help immigrants living in the UK and the US provide care for their aging and elderly parents back home. And right now we've focused on the Indian corridor, so the Indian diaspora specifically, but broader vision is to help Filipinos, Nigerians, anyone that has this problem.
And Sri Lankans?
And Sri Lankans, yes, of course.
So can you tell us about your journey as well? Because I know you've lived in a few different places and obviously that's what makes this problem so interesting to you. Yeah,
for sure. So I think for context, I have not lived in the same continent as my parents for the last 10 to 11 years. Parents are Sri Lankan. They moved to Botswana. I was born there, spent the first 18 years of my life there, then went to Cape Town in South Africa for uni, then ended up in Canada for work, where my startup bug got picked up. And then from Canada, moved over to the UK. And in that journey, was always trying to coordinate stuff for my parents. So my parents actually retired in Sri Lanka now. And in COVID, my sister was based in the UK. I was in Canada and we got stuck in lockdown. And we were trying to get vaccines for our parents. But if you remember the hype, there was no, don't get AstraZeneca, get Pfizer or something. So we're we got to get a Pfizer for our parents in Sri Lanka. But because my sister had a stronger network, she tried to coordinate with friends to get a concierge doctor. Once we found the doctor, I tried to pay them from my Canadian bank account. And this whole process took us 2 to 3 weeks because it was just super painful. There's nothing available online. And that's where I started thinking about elder care. And whenever I spoke to any of my friends, whether they were Indian, Bangladeshi or Filipino, everyone had this problem. And that's kind of where the idea for Nila started.
And obviously with elder care, right? It's not your background beforehand.
No.
So how did you get yourself up to speed in that new environment?
Yeah, so I'm always been in startups, but mainly on the growth side of things and mainly in fintech. So I was in the remittance space, worked at a company called TapTapSend, it's like a unicorn, most of the teams in London. And my job was finding ways of acquiring Indian people and South Asians and Africans living in the UK and the US. So that's where I got motivated to build Nila. But when I got started, I obviously had no health tech background. I didn't, I'd never built anything like this, but I did have founder market fit because I understood the problem. I experienced the problem. So that's where I got the motivation to build it. And in the early days, I got connected with Founders Factory in the UK, and through their Aviva studio, they were exploring healthcare remittance. And through the network, we got connected and they were kind of hey, we kind of want you to explore this with us. So they provided the initial capital, and my very first hire was someone in India from a health tech background. So they could actually help with the health tech side of things, some more the growth and the fintech side.
You mentioned Aviva there as well.
Yeah.
And obviously with the different places you've lived and in new environment, and how did you find this UK startup ecosystem and how the rules are compared to what you're doing elsewhere?
Yeah, so even though I was based in Canada, I always worked for American startups, or startups which were led by an American management team, and it's very different to the UK. So I moved here And I struggled a bit because I felt like whenever I emailed someone, I got a out of office bounce back because they were on vacation somewhere in Europe. And I felt like I'm used to like big ideas and like trying to change the world. And I felt like here you had to kind of get there. Like it's very hard to get that narrative. So that was a bit of an adjustment. So I had to like tone down. I don't want to say tone down ambition, but I almost had to be more quantitative and be like, okay, we're going to do this for the next 6 months. And then if we get there, we'll do this for the next 18 months. Whereas I feel like with the American way, it's kind of like a 21-year-old dropout. It's like, I'm going to go change the world and build the next like Tesla or something, right? So I think that's the biggest adjustment period here.
And with the storytelling aspect too, right? Did you have to change the story from the initial idea to get people to back it?
Yeah, so the challenge I had was because our go-to-market was India. So we're selling to Indian diaspora living in the US and the UK, and we're delivering care operationally in India. I had a big challenge pitching VCs that did not resonate with the problem. So if the VC was an immigrant, they didn't have to be Indian, but if they were like African or Latin American, the moment I said, care for your parent back home, they already like lit up and they would tell me about their personal story. And I wasn't pitching anymore. They were telling me their story. I'm like, oh yeah, but we can solve it like this. Whereas when I was speaking to your John Smith from like New York or from Berlin, I would spend like 20 minutes just describing the family dynamics in South Asian culture before arriving at the problem. So I had to change the story for the person that I was speaking to on the VC side.
And obviously when you started it now, so it was early last year, right?
Yeah, it was like early last year, but full-time July of last year is when I quit my job and jumped on it.
So in that period there, what was it that gave you that confidence? But okay, now it's time to jump on full-time.
Yeah, so the early days, what I was trying to prove was, can we actually get people to pay for this? And can we actually deliver care in India while being based outside of India? So we didn't worry about tech. There was no app. I didn't even have an engineer on the team. So the first like 2 or 3 months, all I focused on was, can I find 5 families in London who are willing to pay me to care for their parents back in India? So we just went to a bunch of events and we were trying to focus on Mumbai as a city. So we were trying to like tap into the Marathi community. And basically I got like 3 families in London who had parents in Mumbai agree to pay, like after pitching them this big story. Once they agreed to pay, we told them onboarding was 2 weeks. And then in that 2-week period, we tried to find a nurse in India. We offered her like 1 month upfront to quit her job and start like the next day. And then we trained her in that 1 week period. And we basically just put her in a WhatsApp group with each family. And that was like the product. And then the moment I had 3 people willing to pay, that's when I had the confidence to like quit the job.
And when you talk about pricing at the beginning as well, right? When you, like you said, you're finding a nurse to put them into a WhatsApp group. How do you know what to charge, or how do you know what to do right at the start?
So we did a bit of market research before joining. So I think I interviewed about 150 or 200 NRIs living in the UK, and just tried to gauge what they're willing to pay for a service like this before we even like had the first product. And the price range people gave us was like £50. So that a month, so roughly £600 for the year. So that's what we charged the 3 customers. And what's interesting is the business was always supposed to be a monthly subscription similar to SaaS. But when I got those 3 customers to pay, I didn't have Stripe set up, and Stripe takes like a couple of days to set up. So I had to get them to wire me the money, but it didn't make sense for me to just ask them for like a £50 like wire fee. So I said, hey, like if you pay for the year, I'll give you a month off. So everyone was like, yeah, that's fine. So everyone paid me like £550. And since then we just stuck with that. So now we don't do a monthly subscription because people are willing to pay for the year. So everyone just pays us for the year. But one thing we realized after launch is we were priced too low. So we've increased our price, I think, twice now. And we still think we're underpriced because people themselves during our interviews are telling us, hey, we would pay more for what you guys are doing.
It's interesting there about the monthly and annual side, right? Because obviously right now you see Lovable and all these guys, right? 100 million ARR.
Yeah.
But it's them extrapolating their monthly.
Times 12. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, obviously there's churn involved with different things. Whereas when people are paying annually, your churn is hopefully a lot less, right?
Yeah, yes.
And when you're saying to people like, okay, we only offer annual subscription, is anybody really even challenging that?
No, so like I would say because of the demographic, it's like high income earners paying for the service. They care less about what they're paying, and they're more concerned about the quality of the care on the ground in India. So they want to know, can I trust this person? Are they going to show up? Can we trust you as a company? And if we can check all of those boxes, like they're willing to pay however much because it's the care of your mom and dad, right? So we haven't had any friction on that. And what we offer is we offer for full refunds. So if you pay for the year and let's say in month 3, you're like, Nila's not for me, you can get a refund for that remaining 9 months. Touch wood, it hasn't happened yet. No one's asked for a refund. So something's working for us.
And how's that onboarding process changed? Because one of the things I'm learning as well is how, with the churn, right, is that people always try to emphasize like last month. And it's like, by then it's too late. If somebody's not happy, they're going to quit, right?
Yeah.
How are you making sure that people, once they start, now the onboarding process to keep them there, keep them happy, and hopefully avoid that 3-month period?
Yeah. So for us, because it's like a high touch elder care service. So once the person's onboarded, depending on the plan, the nurse on the ground or the caregiver on the ground visits the parents either once a month, twice a month, or 4 times a month. So what ends up happening is the parent in India builds a bit of a relationship with our caregivers on the ground. And even if, let's say, the person paying for it in the US is like, I don't think I'm getting value from it. Usually their mom and dad's like, no, I want to keep it, right? And then you're not going to say no to your parents. So making sure the parents are happy and engaging with our caregivers on the ground in India helps reduce the churn on this side.
And like, I know you've got people working in India as well, and you've got a team out there. How are you able to make sure that obviously there's so much depends on the caregiver, right?
Yeah.
So if the caregiver is not friendly or is rude, then you've lost a customer.
Yeah.
So how are you trying to train and get the right people involved there?
Yeah, so this is actually like how we differentiate ourselves. So a lot of people have already tried to find care in India. And the problem is it's extremely fragmented. There's no regulation. So like if you got on a flight and went to India tomorrow, I can bring you on as a caregiver and send you into a customer's home tomorrow. Nothing will happen to us. Whereas in the UK, the company has to be regulated. The caregivers have to go through certification. In the US, every state has its own requirements. So what we've done is we copied the CQC, which is the Care Quality Commission in the UK. And we're like, what would we have to do to deliver care in the UK? We copied all those things, Indianized it for like cultural context. And then we're working with a college in Pune to actually train our nurses. So it's like a 20-hour training program the nurses have to do. And we teach them stuff that they don't learn in India. So things like safeguarding, detecting signs of abuse, which is like everyone here has to do it. And then once they do the training, they have to do an assessment. It's like a multiple choice thing. And only if they pass, they're allowed to like be onboarded. But even before that stage, we double check that, they have no criminal record. We've done the background checks. And then in the interview process, like we're trying to test for empathy. So basically trying to test, like, are you going to be nice to an older person? And only if they pass all of those things, they become a caregiver for Nila.
Random fact, I think I mentioned before. So when I used to have a job,
Yep.
CQC was my first client for about 2 years.
Oh, yeah.
It's all the different inspections, all the different standards. Like I was the guy behind the scenes, like updating the website and updating the systems there. So actually, when you say CQC, actually,
You know what it is. I don't have to describe what it is. Yeah.
So like you've got that side of things, right? And how is it with scaling that out, right? Because obviously the more customers you get, the more nurses you need.
Yeah.
Do you find there's like a huge demand for the kind of roles you're offering out there?
Yeah, so there's a huge demand for the roles because the working conditions are actually better for the nurse. So instead of working like a long 12-hour shift in like a hospital or a clinic, now they're working from home and they're just going on the road to visit elderly people and help them with mobility tasks and checking like blood pressure. So you're doing like 2 visits per day, 6 days a week in India. So the working conditions are better. That's one. Second, because of our business model, we're charging in the US dollar and in the pound. We're able to pay our nurses more than they would locally. So like if a nurse makes like, let's say 50,000 rupees, we can pay them like 60,000 rupees. So they make more money for better working conditions. So Getting the talent is like super, super easy for us. It's more training them and upskilling them is where it takes a bit of time.
Hello, hello. I hope you're enjoying the show so far. I'm Amardeep Parmar, co-founder of BayHQ and the host of this show. For those of you who don't know, BayHQ is the community for high growth Asian heritage founders and investors in the UK. Over 7,500 people have attended our events. 200 people have been through our impact programs. And obviously, there's been over 250 episodes of this podcast. If you want to join us and take part in the programs and come to the events, go to bayhq.com/join. We also just released our first ever book called Startups for Outsiders, which you can get on Amazon now, and the link is in the bio. Hope to see you soon at our event. Hope you enjoy the rest of the episode. And you mentioned your first 3 clients, right? Where you're going to events and talking to people and trying to convince them. As you've grown, how's your strategy changed and how to acquire new clients?
Yeah, so we're still like at this stage 90% B2C, and a lot of it is, I would say, like influencers. So NRI influencers in America talking about immigration, talking about getting a job, visas. They've been like a big acquisition channel for us, and a lot of online communities. So there's a lot of existing threads on Reddit, and there's WhatsApp groups of like Indian people talking about caring for their parents back home, or trying to find insurance. So those have been like our biggest like B2C channels. And right now what's starting to work a lot for us is like a bit of thought leadership. So like myself, the team posting on our personal social media is getting us a lot of inbound. And that's, I would say, like 90%. And right now we're trying to explore B2B2C. So I'm from a remittance background. So speaking to remittance companies like, hey, you have 300,000 people sending money to India. Can we work something out and do like a partnership where we distribute to your customers? And then banks as well. There's a lot of banks that have bank accounts specifically for NRIs and Indian expats, and trying to add this as a service. So those are like more longer term 6 to 9 month projects that we're having early conversations with.
We were both on the HCBC South Asian Heritage Month event last year. And I just remember we both like did a little bit, and then all the questions were at you. Yeah. All the questions like, oh, my mum back home, my dad back home. I was like, all right, I'm just going to chill now. And it was just so obvious so quickly just how much that product market fit is there, right? Because you only have to explain what you did for a couple of minutes. Yeah. And then half the people in that call were like, okay, I need this for my mum, my dad, right? And you mentioned about banks and all these different areas. Where are you finding most of your customers? Like, what's their backgrounds? Is it, because obviously NRIs is quite a broad group of people. Is it tend to be people with professional backgrounds? Is it more entrepreneurs? What do you find?
Yeah, so it's mainly white collar. So we actually did this exercise, I'd say like 3 months ago. Like as we were fundraising, we were like, just in case we're not able to close the round, we know we have customers who love us. Maybe they can raise. So we tried to like map out where they worked. We stalked everyone on LinkedIn and tried to estimate their salaries to know how big the check would be. And we found like most of them were like software engineers. A lot of them were bankers, but they're all like very senior. So it's like your average customer for us is like someone in their 40s, living in the US, like they have a professional degree. So a lot of them were like directors of engineering at like Series B to C and up startups, or they were like working for Morgan Stanley as a VP or Citibank as a VP or director. So that was the profile. It was like people making like really high 6-figure salaries was like, almost all of our customers at the moment.
And you mentioned as well about India is the first customer you're targeting.
Yeah.
How there's expansion plans? Do you have kind of milestones based in of like, okay, once we get to this point, then we're going to go to other countries? Or how are you thinking about that?
Yeah. So we started with India because the language is English. I have a better understanding of the market, and just the sheer number of NRIs is just easier to acquire Indian customers versus other nationalities. And the goal is for the next 12 to 18 months, just double down on India. So right now we have a really good playbook for launching a city in India. So we're in 8 cities, but for us to launch a city only takes 10 days. So if I need a new city to go, I'll just tell the team on the ground, hey, we want to launch Coimbatore. And like within 10 days, we'll have a care team, partnerships ready to deliver care. And I think over 12 months, we'll have a playbook for a country launch from India that we can use to model in other cities. So in terms of milestones, I think for us, it's using the fundraise proceeds to get to like, maybe 1,000 to 1,500 families in India. And then that would be enough of a proof point to like replicate in other countries as well.
And you mentioned about the fundraise, which by the time this comes out, we'll have announced it now.
Yeah.
So can you tell us about the most recent fundraise?
Yeah, for sure. So we closed our seed round. It was 2.4 million US dollars. It was led by a fund in the UK, Local Globe. They're like a tier one fund backed like Wise and a lot of them. And then we had a couple of family offices join the round and some angel investors, both here and in Canada, join the round as well.
And how did you think about that fundraise? Because obviously you said that if you weren't able to raise a round, you might try and go to your customers and raise in that way as well. What's the main thing for the fundraise for you? What's the main ambition behind it? And what do you need the money for? What are you going to spend on?
Yeah, so the main ambition for us is like, we don't want to just be a small mom and pop shop. Like anyone can start a care home, hire a bunch of caregivers and do like caregiving. For us, we want to tackle that niche of cross-border elder care where the person paying for the services in one country and the delivery is in a different country. And we want to be that like categorical company in that specific niche. And the only way we're going to get there is by growing really quickly. And to do that, you need like resources because the only way you're going to, because it's an operational business, the only way you can make it efficient is by using technology to make it easier. So you're not necessarily adding headcount every time you get new customers, but finding creative ways of, for us, it's a lot of the tech we're building is actually helping the caregiver on the ground do less admin. So it's like, instead of spending like 3 hours filling out forms on like the history of a patient, like how can you have like a co-pilot where they can just like dictate and what happens. Another example is a lot of them are in India, they're conversational in English, but they're not fluent. But they have to interact with the customer in the US who's generally text-based. So a lot of our caregivers, they would like speak in Hindi or Tamil, dictate what they want to say, but then it gets text-based, formatted in English for the NRI. So it's things like that that we need to like double down on.
So is a lot of the tech side of things, those tools for those caregivers, right?
Yeah. It's for the caregivers because it's really operational and we want to make that side more efficient to allow us to scale.
And when you're talking to VCs about that kind of model, what was the feedback like? What were the questions they were asking and what did they like?
So one, it depended on the VC. So because of the nature of the business, I pitched both VCs in India and VCs here. And when I pitched VCs in India, they didn't believe it could be done. So because there's already existing players in India in the elder care space that say they're tech, but in the background is just like 10 people doing things manually. So I think a lot of VCs got burnt in India, so they just didn't believe it could be done. Whereas here, there's already companies like Sarah and this Papa and Anna in the US that are scaled to unicorn status. So for them, so for the VCs here, I was like, hey, it's already been done here. I'm trying to do it there. And that's kind of the narrative I used to help us get there.
And you're nearly 2 years into the journey now, right?
Yeah, about not actually, like less than 18 months. So 1st of July is when we fully started. So yeah, it'll be 18 months in December.
What's been the biggest challenge in that period that you didn't expect?
I think it's hiring the right people. So once we had customer traction, growth was there. Once we raised the round, like it's all momentum. So you get your first check. Everyone wants to invest. Like we had to say no. We were oversubscribed and we had to say no to investors. But the challenge has been finding the right people. So, sometimes you bring someone on, they might be the nicest person, but they're just not the right fit. They might be the right fit day one, but like maybe 6 months later, you've got to a stage in the business where it's not the right fit. I think that's been the biggest challenge, is not being too nice. Because at some point it is a business and, you have stakeholders you're accountable for. So I think it's knowing when to bring on the right people at the right stage of the business has been the hardest part.
You mentioned actually a bit earlier as well about how you had over 100 to 200 interviews with NRIs.
Yeah.
How were you able to do that in a new country you weren't raised in?
Yeah. So there was a tool, I forgot what it was, where you can do surveys and you can pick out specific niches. And having immigrants was one of them. So I was able to because I interviewed like Filipinos, Nigerians, Indians. That was one. The other one was like through personal networks. So like anyone that you knew that was Indian, you just DM them on Instagram, Facebook, people you went to like school with, haven't spoken to in like 5 years, and then ask them for like 2 or 3 referrals. And then we also did a lot of on the ground stuff. So we would literally just go to like the gurdwaras and the temples and just stand outside and just like speak to people. But then we just had like some sweets to like give to people when they were speaking to us. And that's how we got a lot of the interviews done.
Because I find, like, I see it a lot now, right? Early stage entrepreneurs where they're like, oh, this is a big problem, but they haven't really talked to any customers.
Yeah.
And as soon as you say you talked to 200 customers, even if you hadn't done everything else you've done, straight away, I'd put you in a different bucket, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of people listening to this should really take into account is that, like, if you want to get the respect of investors or when you're talking to anybody, if you can say, oh, I've talked to 200 customers, they're going to listen to you.
Yeah.
Whereas if like, oh, this is a problem, they're like, yeah, of course it's a problem, right? And
no, exactly. Because it's all execution at the end of the day. And having an idea is like 0.5% of the startup. So like just doing 200 interviews shows that you're executing and you're learning. Even though you might not have revenue, it's the first step, because anyone can have an idea. You'll wake up, have a dream, it's an idea, and no one's going to give you money for that because you haven't done anything. But if you go and speak to people, you might get insights that are different to what you thought. But that's tangible information that you can use.
Did anything surprise you in those interviews?
Yeah. So it was a learning. So we knew people. So actually, I didn't mention this. The idea was health insurance. It wasn't the caregiver product. So when I was brainstorming, I was trying to build a health insurance product. So the immigrant here buys health insurance for their parents back home, and I wanted to work with remittance companies to distribute it. That's what I thought the idea was. I thought, cha-ching, $1 million idea, highly scalable. Went and spoke to people, and the response I got from most customers was like, why would I pay for something I might not use? Because they were like, insurance, I'm going to pay $20 to $50 a month. But then if nothing goes wrong, why am I like paying for this? Was like I guess it's like a South Asian mentality of like, why am I paying for this? And it was in the interviews that we learned, hey, people told us they just want someone on the ground. They're like, being away, it's hard for them to coordinate stuff, and they just wish they had someone reliable on the ground. And that's how we're like, oh, we need like this caregiver product. And then when we doubled down on that, people were like, the biggest challenge was medical stuff. That's why we decided nurses as our caregiver instead of just a regular caregiver. And so that's the result of the interviews, because initially we were trying to do health insurance because we're like, it's VC backable, it's scalable. Like we were thinking about what the investors would want, because we're like, it's high tech, there's no operations, and you just scale very quickly. But then the customers were the ones who told us, hey, we just want like a person on the ground. And then we're like, okay, that's the problem. But now I had to find a narrative for a VC because that's a very operational business.
I think, and I can't remember if you meant this off camera as well, about how it's high margins, right? So once you get the customer in and you're able to, it's something which they can't do themselves very easily. So obviously there's a margin there.
Yeah.
But when you have that story, even with VCs who aren't from like a immigrant background, with the 200 interviews and it's high margins, did you still find pushback?
Yeah, so we found pushback on the fact that it was operational. They were like, how do you scale? They're like, yeah, you got a bunch of customers, but how do you get to 1,000? How do you get to 10,000? And they were like, does it mean that every customer you have to get a caregiver on the ground? And this is where our model was a bit interesting. And we pitched to them, we're like, hey, like it's a subscription. We're doing scheduled visits. So one carer can do anywhere from 20 to 30 families. So it's not a 1-to-1 ratio. And then the other thing is like the more density we build in a city, the more efficient we become. So then we can say, hey, like this carer is going to visit customer A before B because of the location, and we know how much time it takes and the type of visit. So that's where we had to like really double down on that. That's where technology is going to make things more efficient, because people were just like, oh my God, like you're going to have 1,000 people there and 1,000 people here, and it's just going to become super operational.
What's exciting you most about the next few months as well? Like what's coming up soon?
Yeah, I think for us right now is just doubling down on India and growing it, because we've had extremely like really, really good customer feedback. So customers love us. They refer their friends. I'd say like about 30 to 40% of our customers spend more money once they start. So they start on like the cheapest plan, and then a couple months in, they upgrade themselves because they want to use it more. So I think for us now, it's just trying to crack like B2B2C partnerships and just having like more of a hyper growth scale, because right now we're super focused on like product and just delivering care, like high quality care. So we haven't really like turned on the tap for growth, because for us it's people's lives. So we can't have that like that VC AI growth that you're seeing now. We have to be more mindful on it. And we're just like lucky that our existing investors like are fully understanding of that, and that they understand it's more of a long-term journey and not like a quick 2-year blitz that you do.
On that too, so you know how, I don't know if there's some seed strapping, right? Where people are thinking, we'll do one round and that'll be it.
Yeah.
How are you thinking about that? Because I guess if you get operational efficiency, their margins, I guess profitability hopefully won't be too far away.
Yeah. So for us, because of our business model, we have the high margins, but we also have the low, like the different labor costs in the different countries working in our favor. So if we wanted to, and we hit the milestones that we set up with this fundraise, we would be profitable. Then we would not be investing in R&D and technology. So if we, and that was kind of what I had at the back of my mind. Fundraising is like, because there was like a drought in fundraising a couple months ago. I'm like, I don't want to be in that situation. So I wanted to have, in the next round, have the flexibility to say, okay, we don't have to raise because we're profitable, because things in the market's not right. But that's, I think more and more founders are doing the seed strapping thing. I think we will definitely stay on the venture scale path, because I want to build a big business and we want to change the world. So that's the path we'll choose. But if we hit our milestones, we should be profitable without another round as well.
You mentioned with AI and the comparison points there. Are you using it internally yourselves too in order to increase your own operational efficiency?
Yeah, so we use it. I think it's hard not to use AI. Like, I mean, almost everyone's using ChatGPT internally at work, and then the engineers use it to write code, which is interesting because like we have 2 engineers that joined recently, and they're like super young, I think 2-3 years out of uni. So they've started their careers with the AI wave, and like, you know, you tell them something and they already have tools and they just ship things very quickly, which is super exciting. And then on the growth side, it's very easy to pump out content and things like that. So there's definitely AI, but one thing we're mindful of is our customers don't like the word AI. So if you look at any of our marketing, any of our websites, any of our like influencer content, we never say AI, or we never use the word technology, because for the person paying, they don't want AI taking care of their parents. They want like a human being, and that's what we emphasize on. So any AI we use, it's to make things more efficient. And it's obviously for the investor side, and internally we know that's how we grow. But for the customer story, it's very much people behind the business. It's the caregivers. It's how they actually change things for them.
There's some come to mind recently as well about it's almost more defensible if you're not based on AI.
Yeah.
And that's not their main selling point, because there's no loyalty there then, right? And you're seeing it now when people are saying, oh, this new thing has come out, it's so amazing. And the next month, another company has a similar tool, and that's a new hot thing. And you're seeing with a high churn amongst AI products. Whereas when it's a human based, like you said, it's like, if the parents like the caregiver, they're not going to want to switch.
No.
And it's much more sticky in that sense, right?
Yeah, it's much more sticky. And it's one of those things where you don't want to switch your care provider for your parents. It's like, it's not like the AI product. Like if you wanted to like test something out, you can go and find like 10 different products. I've done this, like, you know, Lovable's there, but there's other Lovable equivalents. And I just paid the $10, $15 for 3 different things to see what works. And then I just cancel my subscription for everything else. Whereas with elder care, you're not going to send someone into your parents' home and then cancel the subscription. Like you want to, because you go through this internal conversation with your family, get everyone, your brothers, your sisters, your mom and dad to say yes. Once they've done that, you have like 5 people depending on this product. Like it becomes so sticky, because even if one person wants to stop paying, they're still the parents. And then you probably have siblings also involved in the care who are going to be like, no, we still need this. So that just means, because I had this conversation with our investor recently, because I was a bit worried that the benchmarks for the Series A would be higher than I expected because of the AI thing. Because I think I had a number, that's what I raised on. And then I saw a Carter report like 3 weeks later. It was like $2 million higher. I was like, this is fucked. Like, I'm never going to do this. And then my investor's like, listen, like you guys have almost 0 churn. So you shouldn't worry about like your absolute revenue number. If you get to your milestones and your churn is very low and your margins are high, investors will still be interested because it's a very different business to like a pure AI play.
So what we're doing now is we have 260 something episodes of the podcast out.
Yeah.
And we're saying to people 2 years later, so 200 episodes later, we're getting them back on again.
Yeah.
So if you're sitting here again in 2 years' time, 200 episodes later, what would you love to say was like the greatest achievement?
I think it would be saying that we've cared for 5,000 families and be in like at least 3 or 4 different like countries, not just India. So India is just the next 12 months, but we'd love to be in the Philippines because we explored that market. We'd love to be in Sri Lanka to solve my own problem, and probably a couple other South Asian countries as well.
So what we're going to do, we have a little TV up here.
Yeah.
So the next time you come on, we'll play that little clip and then see where you are at. And you're going to analyze it. Okay, what happened? Did you go a different path? Was there a pivot? What happened?
Yeah.
But I think it's always really interesting to see how, as the market shifts and things happen, where the plans go different. And it could be maybe you're in 10 countries, maybe you've doubled down in one country. You've got 10,000 families there.
Yeah.
But it's just really interesting to track that, I think.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be like an informal board meeting, KPI thing that we're trying to track to. Because even with me, right, I thought I was going to build a health insurance business. And then right after speaking to users, it became a care delivery business, which, and it might change 5 years from now. It might be a very different world.
And you've said you want to build a massive business.
Yeah.
What is that overall dream? Like someday that would be like, yes, we've made it.
Yeah, I think it would be that, if someone lived in a country that was different to where they're from and they needed to care for a family member back home, like Nila is like that name they call, it's kind of like how now, if you want to get from point A to point B, you just pick up Uber. If you want to get a nice place to stay, you get on Airbnb. So similar to that, I'd like to have Nila as that like go-to brand of like anything elder care related. Like, so if you want to coordinate something back in Africa or Latin America or Asia, but you live in the US or the Europe, you just go on Nila and sort that out.
It's where it almost becomes a verb, right? It's like, oh yeah, just Nila it, right?
Yeah, exactly. You just Nila it or something.
So really loved hearing the story and everything you've been building so far. And like you said, it's going to impact so many lives. We're going to move to quick fire questions now.
Yep.
So first one, who are 3 Asians in the UK you think are doing incredible work and you'd love to shout them out?
Yeah, for sure. So I think one of them is Ben Maratapu. He's the founder, CEO of Sarah. Main reason I'm shouting him out is he's built a massive elder care company. And I'm trying to do exactly what he's done, but like across borders. And I would say he's probably like the biggest health tech company in the UK at the moment. And they're doing quite well. Second one would be Rishabh Kaul. He's at Hoxton Ventures now. He had a South Asian community as well. Before that, he was instrumental in the early days of Nila. So he resonated with the problem. And he really helped me in kind of crafting my story, but also with a lot of intros in the India scene. And then the third one would be Benji Fernandez, founder, CEO of Nala, as well. I met him at a conference and then we became really good friends. And he also helped a lot with like my fundraise and kind of crafting my narrative and helping with the intros. And I'd say those 3 would be like the biggest ones I'd want to shout out.
Awesome. And then if people want to find out more about you and Nila, where do they go?
Yes, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, so definitely follow me on LinkedIn. And for Nila, www.nilacares.com. We have a rebrand coming up, so have a look out for that.
And if people listening right now could help you, what could they do?
I would say tell people about Nila. So if you have family back in India or you have an Indian friend who has family back in India, just forward them Nila, forward them our socials or have them follow me. Even if you don't need it now, chances are you're going to need it in the future. And we're always looking to speak to more people.
So great to have you on. Any final words?
No, I think just keep doing what you're doing. So when I moved to London, I had zero network. I had like my friends from from work and stuff. When I was trying to find different communities to tap into, Bay HQ is one of them. And I think through that, I've also connected to a bunch of people that have been quite helpful. So definitely keep you up watching, keep supporting Bay and keep promoting them as well.